At this time last year, kids already struggling with Zoom schooling and social distancing from their friends were hit with yet another disappointment when several towns in the state officially canceled trick-or-treating, and many more cautioned against it over fears of spreading COVID-19. But now, while the pandemic is by no means over, the state and the country are in a much better place, thank goodness. And even the director of the CDC says it's safe to take part in the holiday tradition this year.
I would say put on those costumes, stay outside, and enjoy your trick-or-treating.
But one local school system isn't quite so sure it's a good idea to get back into the holiday spirit, and their concerns have nothing to do with COVID. In Melrose, school officials have decided to, quote, de-emphasize Halloween and shift our focus toward community building through fall celebrations. Their goal, according to the Melrose Superintendent of Schools, a commitment to ensuring that all students and staff feel safe, included, and represented in our schools. The decision has gotten a lot of pushback from parents and students. It's also gotten quite a bit of national attention. More on that later. But some of the reactions have gotten ugly, prompting a backlash of its own. Joining me to discuss are senior local editor for Patch.com, Mike Karaji, who has been following this story closely. We had hoped to get the Melrose Superintendent of Schools to join us. She was going to, and then she canceled. Mike Karaji, thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, if I recall correctly, I learned about this story from you. I think you got to this before anyone else did. Can you start off by describing for me, just so I don't get it wrong, and for viewers who may have heard mixed things, what exactly is Melrose's new policy? What does it do? What does it allow? And what does it bar?
I think the most important thing to start with is what it's not, because I think there's a lot of confusion. Halloween isn't, canceled is such a loaded word right now. It's not canceled in the sense of, kids can still come to school with costumes. Kids can come to school with trick-or-treat bags. They can come to school with pumpkin candy. Halloween is allowed. But what the superintendent's doing is shifting focus away from Halloween when it comes to celebrating, these fall events that kids do at the end of October into November. It's not there are still PTO sponsored events that are kind of Halloween centric, but essentially she's just pulling Halloween from the menu here. And as far as a district like responsibility, and her stance, is pretty clear. Halloween is great, celebrated at home. When you're at school, we're just going to have, a fall celebration. So, yeah. But
just so I'm clear, I want to make sure I'm getting this right, and I apologize for being slow on the uptake. Kids, you said, can wear costumes to school, right?
They're allowed to. It's not. I talked to the superintendent, I think it was Saturday, and she had said she prefers they not. I mean, she was clear about that. But it's as long as it's within the dress code of, kids are allowed to wear Halloween costumes to school tomorrow, Friday. But
the school's not whipping up. They're not saying, "Hey, happy Halloween, everyone. We'll put up a banner."
There's no costume contest. There's no, not that there was, but it's just de-emphasizing the Halloween aspect of it and everything that might go along with that.
Got it. And was the rationale for this change, had they heard complaints from parents who said, the way the school handles this has made our kid feel excluded. They didn't want to wear a costume. They felt like they didn't fit in. Or was it a decision that was more made on the basis of concerns about things that could happen hypothetically?
Probably closer to the latter. When I had asked the superintendent that question, she said that, at that point when she made that decision, she had not heard anything from parents, from students on that, saying they felt uncomfortable with Halloween, saying they felt excluded or left out of it. But she said that principals had heard that. So while she didn't hear it, directly, she had heard that from principals, is what she had told me. And, the district, what she had said is that they've been de-emphasizing Halloween for a number of years now. Now, the superintendent, this is only her, she started right before the pandemic. So this is her first, you can't even call it a normal year still. Yeah. But the district had been moving away from Halloween a bit. She just pulled the plug on it.
I'm glad you noted that. And what a tough time, by the way, to take the helm of any school system or to be an educator, period. I don't envy the people teaching my kids. How did you pick up on the outrage in Melrose proper that was, and maybe outrage is too strong. You tell me, how did you pick up on the backlash that was developing after the schools made the choice they did?
Well, it wasn't, a big part of this I think really the primary part of this that the district may have gotten wrong without weighing in on the subject too much is the communications of it. A lot of people were frustrated that they found out either through my story, through a letter that had come the previous day from the superintendent to the school community after there had been rumors kind of percolating and stuff like that. And so it had kind of trickled down from the superintendent into, I believe, I don't want to speak too strongly on this, the flow of it, but it didn't, it was last second for a lot of these parents, a week before Halloween, and it wasn't directly to them. And I think that was where a lot of the initial, again, I don't want to say outrage either, but just concern started. And you know how it is. I mean, parents were kids once. Kids love Halloween. When you're parents, you love Halloween, and when you have kids, you love Halloween for your kids. And so they got frustrated over that. It was, local Facebook groups, certainly emails to me, calls and texts to me to look into this. And people were upset, but they handled it with a level of civility at the very beginning. I know we'll get into the national aspect of it, but as the story grew, I think you saw a lot less of that.
Yeah. By the way, just for the record, I may be the one counterexample to the idea that when you're a parent, you love Halloween, because I still don't love Halloween. But you pointed out on Twitter that it can be tough for those of us who are reporters, but not pollsters, to get an accurate sense of how public opinion's breaking down on any issue that we're looking into. We go out, we talk to maybe 10 people, and then we report back on the pulse of the community. With that caveat out of the way, was this a small minority of Melrose residents who were really upset about this, or was it a good chunk of the town, would you say?
There's over 29,000 people in Melrose. I don't know the breakdown of how many of them are parents. It's hard to say, like you said. I mean, I get the sense that it was, I've been here for 4 years, I think. I live right downtown, and I've been covering Melrose pretty in depth for a number of years. This seemed to be a much larger foundation of disagreement with people. I mean, it didn't seem to be just a vocal minority, which a lot of people claimed that it was. Now, it could be. It's hard to get a sense when you're just on a Facebook page. Even if a post has 300 comments, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Out of 29,000 people. But you do get a sense, and my sense was that even the folks who might be more reliably on the other side of this, or in support of this, I guess is what I should say, so in support of these educational choices that the superintendent makes, or the school committee might, even those people seem to me to kind of take some, be brushed back by this a little bit. Again, whether the subject or the timing or just a mixture of the two.
Yeah, or the fact that we're all still in the midst of this horrible period, which is horrible, even if you're getting through it really fortunately. Was Melrose primed for this to take off as an issue? You pointed out, I think in your first piece on this, that the town had gone back and forth over changing the athletic mascot at the high school fairly recently. Was there a groundwork laid for this to pop in Melrose, do you think?
No, I don't think any more than anywhere else. I mean, it's such a reflection of where we're at nationally. It's I think you could have put this issue in any community and in the same circumstances, and you would have seen at least a significant backlash or a significant conversation about it. The school is looking at changing from the Red Raider nickname and moniker and mascot. And that's an active thing that they're doing right now. And, this is the first year that they didn't have Columbus Day in the district. They voted to go with Indigenous Peoples Day. So there are, of course, people who they hold dearly to this stuff, and they see it as, well, it's being taken away from me. What's next? And then it's Halloween. And they're like, okay, really, now what's next?
Yeah.
And then there's other people who think, this is all for the best. And they these two people, these two factions just, they meet on Facebook, and it's, how it
what
goes
better
from there.
place to hash out your differences, right? Or meta, I guess we should be calling it now. So as you mentioned, this went really quickly from a local story of interest to a national source of, I'll use the outrage word here, and also it became sort of a punch line for some people. I think we have video of Jimmy Kimmel playing it for laughs. Let's take a look.
Sounds to me like maybe Julie Kuchenberger couldn't think of a fun costume, so she ruined it for everyone. Maybe I'm being obtuse, but who's feeling marginalized by a Halloween party? Goblin Americans? I don't know.
Julie Kuchenberger is the superintendent of schools in Melrose. Maybe funny stuff if you're a Jimmy Kimmel fan. I don't think that was his best material, but you've documented that this actually got really ugly as it went from local to national. What happened as that shift occurred?
It goes from it's multifaceted. I mean, you look at the Jimmy Kimmel thing. It could be funny if you weren't Julie Kuchenberger or her family who's having. There's been websites that have plastered photos of her and her family, public, Facebook photos that they found online, and they've been, talking about where, generally where she lives, and just some identifying information that has no business being out there because someone disagrees. I mean, that when you talk about cancel culture, what it really is seeing something that you disagree with and trying to eliminate the person or just dox them,
Yeah.
So, as it's gotten larger and larger and larger, that kind of stuff happens more and more and more. You see people come in with without any of the nuance of the original local reporting on it, and as the Fox News and New York Post, whoever gets it, as these larger outlets get it, you just always lose a bit of that nuance. You get not just myself, but other local TV outlets here in Massachusetts, maybe who have worked in the city. Some people might live in the city. Some people might just have some kind of identifying factor with Melrose that can add to it a little bit. I don't think anyone else, once it exploded, I don't think anyone else was able to really get into what it is. People see, oh my God, I looked at the headlines today, I searched Melrose Halloween. Almost all the headlines say Melrose Halloween cancel. And, the superintendent in the school committee meeting Tuesday night was very clear. She said, listen, Halloween is not canceled. That's what she said. Now, again, it comes back to how do you define canceled? It is, it was clear to me after speaking with her over the weekend that it's something that the district is moving away from. So I don't know what verb you're allowed to put on that to say what they're doing to it. But that's, people see canceled and they flip their lid, and that's what happened.
Let me ask you in closing, you are a really good local news reporter. You're not a political philosopher or a cultural commentator, at least that I know of. But I'm wondering what your take after covering this story is. What does it tell us about the way we live right now, and maybe areas that we might need to take it down a notch in when it comes to the intensity?
Well, listen, the mayor came out today of Melrose and issued a plea for people to just get back to civil discourse, and he really forcefully denounced kind of some of the attacks, really personal attacks toward the superintendent, toward her family, toward threats and stuff like that. I just have no business in what we're doing. So listen, we're not going to fix it based on the Melrose Halloween controversy or whatever. I mean, this has been going on for a long time, and it's just going to get worse on social media and the internet. But it doesn't say much about, again, the subject of what we're talking about, the Halloween, is it or isn't it welcome? And that's up for debate, and that's not my area to talk on. The only thing I could speak on is what's happened in the aftermath of that, the backlash to the backlash, and just ratcheting up from there. It's just got no business, and kind of people being adults in America and kind of talking about things that is meant for kids. I haven't talked to any children who live in Melrose. I don't know how they feel about it, but there's no way that they're more upset than their parents, and there's certainly no way they're handling it worse than their parents.
Mike Karaji, thank you for talking this through. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.